Hi, everybody. I'm David Rullo. Normally, you would see Rabbi Meyer here, but he's on the other side of the microphone this time, being interviewed by me. Um, we realized that you've seen him interview a lot of people, but we haven't interviewed him. We haven't spoke with him about how he's doing, how he's been able to adjust to the new normal, and how he has been able to move Temple Emmanuel into the digital landscape. So we want to take just a few minutes and talk to him about that. Thank you for being here and taking this time, Rabbi Meyer. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited. Thank you for the idea. Thank you for the opportunity.
Sure. So can you tell me a little bit about how you were able to move so quickly from the physical landscape to the virtual landscape? It seemed like the orders came down from the governor even before that we had to start sheltering at home and keeping social distancing, and you already had programming available for Temple Online. How were you able to make that move so quickly?
Being a new homeowner in the move to Pittsburgh, I'm getting pretty good at watching YouTube videos to learn how to do different things around the house, whether it's rewiring for an electric dryer as opposed to a gas dryer, no matter what it happens to be. So watching YouTube videos to learn how to use YouTube got a little bit meta at one point, but really allowed me to hit the ground running. I'm grateful to a wonderful team, though the stay-at-home order came down from the governor. Actually, our leadership team at Temple was a little bit ahead of the curve. The last thing we got to do in person was a trip to the band's visit, and there was some consideration, should we, shouldn't we? We didn't know the full extent or how contagious this thing was at that time. We decided to go through with it, although Rabbi Lockitz and I joined a phone call with David Weisberg and Leslie Hoffman and Michelle Markowitz from the lobby that evening, making the difficult decision to cancel our in-person services. And so I had a little bit of lead time. I went straight from the show to Temple and started drafting that email that went out to the congregation the next day. And it really gave me an opportunity in the quiet of the evening to start thinking about what else we should be doing, just recognizing we heard from schools the next day, of course, and recognizing that this wasn't a temporary solution, but rather something we were going to be dealing with for quite some time.
So for me, the remarkable thing has been that if this had been a normal time in Temple, we would have had a few tent post events, speakers, those sort of things. And instead, you've moved to having speakers every day. You've had to find guests to speak with, and they're of a very strong caliber. Everybody from local politicians to doctors to therapists to local Temple members. How are you finding your guests? How hard is it? And are they coming to you now? Is it becoming any easier?
Yeah, so making the decision that we needed to be doing a little bit more to keep people connected and connecting during a difficult time, I think is both good for the individuals within the community, as well as for the community itself. To get to see everyone's face, even in this virtual medium, is so, so important. And often, particularly when there's this deluge of information coming at us, to see somebody that you trust, whether it's Dr. Andy Ryback from St. Clair Hospital, whether it is a politician you may not trust, but at least you know and know to be on the ground and local and have better information, whether it's individuals, that it helps to cut through some of the clutter. One of the challenges of being here for less than a year is that I've only been able to develop so many relationships so far, and we're really, really calling in all of the different favors from various points in my life, whether that is getting to work with a tremendous interfaith clergy group here that invited me in from day one. It was a little disconcerting when I first got to town. They kind of pulled one of these Clint Eastwood, here's the open chair, and that they're talking to, that they had reserved for me. But they've been amazing, as have, Rick Steves, who was a donor to an organization that I was a co-chair of the board for, was gracious with his time. He points out that he's not doing any traveling right now, so he's got nothing better to do. But I'm excited as my personal connections begin to run out, the strength of the community. So Rabbi Lockitz has been interviewing some people that she knows. Various individuals have made suggestions. Eileen Isko has set me up with a really fascinating one for this week. Noah Koslov, who is the CBS Sports NBA guy, is going to join us to talk about how hard that decision was and what he sees for the future of sports. So really, not only do I get to build on the strength of connections I've already made, I get to build on the strength of connections that they have already made to continue offering something that I hope is compelling. That brings me to the third part, that there's a little bit of fear in my heart. I think we're headed into a pretty dark time for nonprofits and for Jewish organizations. Keeping people connected and connecting, I hope, is not only good for the individual, but is good for our sustainability and longevity as well. I want people to continue tuning into Temple as part of our long game.
Yeah, so to that connection between Temple members and really the whole world, because we moved beyond just members being able to see a lot of these things, right? I noticed that there are some synagogues who've decided to, on Friday nights and Saturday mornings, pre-record their services. And you've clearly made a decision that it's important to do these live, which I'm sure adds an added dimension to the service. I mean, you didn't go to school to be a tech guy, right? But you're doing it. What made you decide it was better to be live than it was to be on YouTube? Pre-recorded, I mean. So
yeah. While I was in Seattle, I had a chance to do a certificate program at the University of Washington in gerontology. If only my crystal ball had been working a little bit better, I would have definitely taken a few more courses in AV tech. I'm not sure. It's a good question, and it's been fascinating to get to shul shop, right? Rabbis never get to see their colleagues in action because we're on the pulpit at exactly the same time. And now we get to see the best of the best. We get to see different models, what's working, what's not working. It offers us a course in what not to be doing as well as what to be doing. And I think there's something nice about being live. One, it's a little bit less perfect, and God knows if anyone watching has seen me lead a service, it's never going to be perfect. I bring a little bit more of a casual style, and I'm willing to own up to those mistakes that I make on the pulpit. There was one time that I was leading a confirmation service, and I made 3 in a row that they weren't bad. They were simply so glaringly obvious. Even the congregation was laughing. But I think that's really important, particularly with a group of young people, right? What better than to alleviate some of the stress of you leading a service than to see somebody who does this every single week or multiple times a week goofing up along with you. So I think there's something very human about that. The second thing I would say is I think I like the interactivity. I like being able to see people who are responding, whether it is the ego boosting nice devar, and don't you wish that they would all be 5 minutes or less? Maybe that's a model we need to go to in person as well. Or just wishing the community a Shabbat Shalom, right? The number of people who are tuning in from all over the place is absolutely wonderful. The other thing that I would say that I have the blessing of here is an amazing team around me. Rabbi Lockitz is musical, Tim Brogdon is amazing and brings a comfort and familiarity with video and audio that I didn't have. Those first services, he was as cool as a cucumber. I was freaking out into the camera. Emily, who was standing behind the camera, was trying to smile and dance and get us to look up and make eye contact more often. So it's nice to be working with those professionals. And I would point out that I married particularly well, right? I have an in-house musician who makes me look far better than I otherwise would. If I didn't have access to someone who not only knows what singing on key is, but can do it in a way that I can't, I would have to get a little bit more creative. right now, I am so grateful to everyone who's been joining our services. Rabbi Mahler has made videos, Jana Mostad made videos, Tim Brogdon's made videos, Rebecca Clausen, Neil Weinstein, just wonderful collection of musicians able to join in and augment what we're able to do live. I don't know if that hybrid model is the best way or not. It seems to be working, and for those who joined us from this past Friday until now, we've had a tech breakthrough in the Meyer household. I finally figured out how to solve the disconnect between the audio and video feed, that for next week, they should be sunk together the whole way through. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah. So how has the transition been from speaking to members of Temple who were there in front of you, and now speaking to a camera? It's a cold medium. You're not getting any sort of response from people other than the feed where people are saying, Shabbat Shalom and nice to see you and all of those things. But that's different, right? It's a different skill set. How is that?
It is very different. When I was out in Seattle, I led services twice a month at an elder care facility. And it was the best training ground to lead services because you never had to guess what people were thinking. The whisper to the person beside them came out as something of a shout, right? And so I, as a service leader, got the real-time feedback. Too fast, too slow? Can everybody see what page we're on? Is this sermon resonating? Or is that melody something people are singing along with? And now I'm lacking that feedback. In some ways, it's a little bit freeing, right? Now that we are not as interested in the melodies people know, but the melodies that we as service leaders want to be bringing or can be doing so credibly, we have a little bit more flexibility there. But it's hard. I look forward to the time when we all get to be back in person, creating a vibrant sense of community that just can't happen on the camera.
So speaking of that, when we get back to normal, Pennsylvania is dipping its toes into the water, starting to reopen in some counties, some things. So I think we can see that there is going to be an end to this. It may not be as quickly as we would like. It may be with enhanced measures, but one day we are going to be able to be in the same room again. You and other synagogues and Jewish institutions have sort of taken the genie out of the bottle. There are now bar and bat mitzvahs that are taking place online. Certainly the training and the tutoring is. How do we move now into the new landscape? And what does that mean? I mean, should we ever say to a parent now again, sorry, we can't do the tutoring online. It just doesn't work.
It is a really good question. One of the things that resonates first about the way you ask the question, and then I will answer it itself. I love the way you phrase when we're back in the same space, right? My hope, I don't think there's going to be a return to quote unquote normal. I think there's going to be a return to being together, and it's going to have to look a little bit different. I was driving the other day to the Montour Trail to get a run in. It was early in the morning, I think it was 5:45 or something, and I was listening to the radio on the drive, and a traffic report came on the radio. It struck me as absolutely absurd. One, because that's, for the most part, people are accessing traffic reports via their GPS, via Google Maps or Waze or Apple Maps or their built-in navigation system. And two, there are no freaking cars on the road. So why do they continue to do this bit that has absolutely no bearing on the world? In many ways, that's the trap synagogues have fallen into, right? We continue to do what we've always done because we've never been forced to look at it, because we've never been asked to make a change, right? As we're looking at, you mentioned bar and bat mitzvah tutoring. Let's talk Hebrew school for a minute, right? 4 o'clock Hebrew school is a royal pain for many, many parents, right? The model works when you have a 2-parent family, one of whom isn't working, and the model falls apart when you have a single parent, when you have multiple working parents, when you have an inability to change your schedule to get a young person to the synagogue after school when they're tired and cranky and they don't really want to be there anyway. And so you as a parent have to reorganize your entire life to force your kid to do something that they don't want to do. Now, I'm grateful that Rabbi Locketts has made some tremendous strides with our Hebrew school program long before I got here, that it's not the torture that I went through when I was that age. But I think the reality is we see that there needs to be a change. We need to re-examine everything that we're doing. Another example from Friday night services, whether it is those 5 minutes rather than 10-minute sermons, whether it's that people can watch and participate in services from the dinner table, or whether they just like being in their pajamas, 3 to 4-fold better attendance in our virtual space than when we're in person. Some of that is convenience for people here. The other part is we realize our community extends far beyond the South Hills of Pittsburgh, right? Those snowbirds that we had formerly written off and said, oh wait, they're in Florida, they'll come back in April, I look forward to seeing you then, are still choosing to tune in to Temple Emmanuel rather than a community where they're at. We have an obligation, I think, now that we know that, to not stop knowing that, right? We can't pretend that they're not part of our congregation for those months anymore. They are, and we have an obligation to try to reach them. Whether you're tuning in because your son is the rabbi from Florida, or because your daughter-in-law is the rabbi from Connecticut, or your daughter is on the board from Florida or from California, we have a large catchment area. Look, at some point, we're going to have to talk about how to monetize those connections, because as we're entering a brave new world, synagogues are going to also have to look at how to fund themselves. But the reality is we have to go back to the drawing board for absolutely everything we do.
Yeah, so as I was preparing for this talk, word came out that the Reform movement had canceled all of their summer camps. And there have been other cancellations, not rescheduling cancellations. So I have a twofold question for you in two totally different directions. But the first one is, the first part is, these organizations, there has been a lot of redundancy in Jewish programming. Trying to make sure we don't miss anybody, sometimes we have more than one program touching the same people. Should we expect, and should they even, should they all come back? Should all of these programs come back, all of these services? Or do we need to realize it's a new land, there is a new landscape? And the second part of that is, if I'm a parent and I was sending my son or daughter to summer camp, what the heck am I going to do with them now?
That's right. You know, my heart breaks for not only families, but for camp directors who had to say goodbye to their home away from home, that thing they've been looking forward to that allows them to make it through the other 10 months of the year, or those 2 months at summer camp. And it's going to be a long summer, right? Particularly for those kids in a more urban setting where this was their chance to get outdoors. That's not going to be the case. You know, it'll be interesting to see what all develops to fill in some of that gap. The reality is our camps can never replace what they do in person, but they're trying. They're putting together Shabbat services and bunk check-ins and Havdalah programs and ways to keep the community connected, both for the benefit of the campers as well as for their own financial sustainability. This gets more to part A, and we'll get back to it in a moment, but summer camps make up a disproportionate amount of the URJ's budget, well over half. And so we're going to see a major existential threat to a number of the organizations we know and love that come as the economic drag of this continues. What can kids be doing this summer? I'm not sure. We look forward to being part of the solution. Rabbi Locketts is working hard to provide meaningful feedback and content. You know, we realize today was scheduled to be the last day of Sunday school. Well, I don't even know what day it is, let alone why calendars matter anymore, right? If kids are going to be home, we have a unique opportunity to instead of forgetting everything you've learned over the past 9 months, in the next 3 months, we can continue that in some way in building community. Chris Herman with the J-Line program has done a great job offering a hangout space, even though that schedule has ended. Different things we can be doing, different things the camp community will be doing, different ways that I would love to engage young people, teenagers, in helping to build out some of our technology at Temple, right? I'm under no misconception that a 16-year-old couldn't do everything I'm doing 3 times better and 4 times faster. And so I think there might be some opportunities there. But I'm also excited to see what some of these other organizations do. I received word that the Chautauqua Institution, which is a fond spot for many adults, has also made the difficult decision to close for the summer. I hope that they're able to continue offering that amazing content in the virtual space, and I would love to get us plugged into that, right? The level of speaker, the level of content they're going to be able to provide far exceeds what we can do locally, and I'm hoping that other organizations working with kids will be able to do the same. It is going to be a scary time for the Jewish world, right? I think that one of the biggest non-human casualties to COVID-19 is going to be Jewish innovation. It used to be that anyone with creativity and either a willingness to put in the hours or the ability to write a grant to Federation, to one of the amazing foundations in the community, could try something that would reach a small number of individuals and help to enrich their Jewish lives. And the reality is they're just not going to make it. My fear is that the same is true for many synagogues, those that are well-resourced, not only in terms of financial endowments, but members who are able to see them through this will continue to survive. If I were a congregation under a couple hundred families, I would be very concerned right now and looking at merger opportunities or ways to absolutely batten down the hatches, because while we hope that a vaccine comes, while we hope that we're able to be together soon, 3 years, 5 years, how long before we step out of this economic hardship? And while hopefully the broader economy is able to revive more quickly, we can look to 99, we can look to 2008 and see that many Jewish institutions, many nonprofits are the lagging indicators for that economic revival, that we're going to be hurting for a lot longer than people's retirement portfolios are hurting. And it's going to make some major changes.
So the last question is that in addition to everything that you used to do, all of your normal rabbinic duties and the counseling sessions that you normally become a part of as a rabbi, you've taken on the role of an AV tech, you have taken on the role of a programming coordinator. When do you find time for yourself? And when you have a few minutes, what does that mean? What do you do with your free time?
I'm very cognizant of the fact that I'm speaking to someone who also doesn't work a normal 9 to 5, and I suspect it's true for many in the congregation. One of the real challenges of this time is the day off is a thing of the past, right? I was looking at the programmatics calendar before this. I've been on camera for every single day of the last 8 weeks, which is probably not the model for sustainability. You know, again, I'm grateful to have a wonderful team around me. Rabbi Lockett has been working hard, Leslie Hoffman, we simply couldn't be doing any of this without her. And I think we're also realizing that some of the core competencies that we need for tomorrow are different than what synagogues needed in the past. To have someone who is more tech savvy, who is able, instead of like I am piecemealing it together, but to be building out the calendar, telling us what we need to be doing, helping to assist with some of the production and communication in the virtual space is going to be important to all organizations moving forward. So I think we have some things to be considering there. As I mentioned, I am a runner. It is my moment of sanity in the day. I often get out before the kids wake up, or, well, sometimes Eli wakes up a little bit too early, and so I prevail upon the goodwill of my wife to allow me to go out running. Gives me a good chance to clear my head. But I think, like everyone else, we're trying to get out for a walk each and every day, trying to spend as much quality family time as possible. It becomes easy to be plugged into a device 24 hours a day. And I'm speaking about me as an adult. I'm not in any way. Electronics have become an important part of kids' lives, not only using that technology to continue learning, but to allow working parents to keep doing what they're doing. And I would never presume to judge. I'm simply talking about my eyesight, right? Often when I leave this, I go monitor and make sure nobody has made a stupid Facebook post on the Connor Lamb interview. And then I'm plugged into Instagram to see what our teens are up to. And then I realize that I've been staring at an electronic device and not seeing past it far too often. So finding those times throughout the day to simply put them down, to stare at a wall, to read a book if I have the capacity to do so, to just try to find those little moments of sanity, as we're in this for the long haul.
Well, thank you for taking the time. Go out and stare at some nature or read a book or whatever it is you want to do. And I really appreciate you taking the time on a Sunday with me.
Thank you, and thank everyone who is not only listening to this, but those who are helping to generate some of the wonderful content for Temple. Kate Lewick does multiple programs a week. Beth Schwartz has been keeping our Sunday morning minyan together. Iris and Ellen in the ECDC have been attempting the Herculean task of trying to keep kids connected. Rabbi Lockett's is awesome with the Torah Center. There is so much, and I'm so grateful for everyone who is tuning in, who is helping to provide that content. I can't miss the opportunity for a plug. If you have anyone in your circle or orbit I should be speaking with, please let me know, right? We are, again, coming to the end of the contacts that I've made in the community. Delighted to go back to some of those people, but also always open to new ideas. Best is if you reach out to them, ask if they're game, and then connect us, so that I'm not making a cold call. But I'm so grateful for everyone's patience as we learn together in this brave new world. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. Thank you.